This is You the People. Each week, we three Canadians talk about you, the people, your politics, your political system, your dueling television town halls, and yes, your upcoming election. And with me, as always, Corey Hogan and Stephen Carter. Guys, what's going on?
Meat and candy, Zain. It's a big night for me. I've given myself sugar.
Yeah, thanks for your contribution to this project, Stephen. We really appreciate.
I had to have a little snooze before we recorded.
we had a division of labor that you have failed to understand the divide and then labor. You failed on both fronts of division of labor.
Corey watched Biden. You watched Trump. I had a nap. That is a perfect division of labor in my mind. I don't understand what we're talking about.
Well, sleepy Stephen Carter is a well-known internet meme.
Yeah,
I'm just fine with that.
So this is what ends up happening when one of your presidential candidates is a complete psycho. You have the American public having to choose between a town hall with Joe Biden for 2 hours, starting at the same time as Donald Trump, having a town hall, in air quotes, for an hour on NBC. And we watched both of them. I want to talk about both of them. But first, let's head into the headlines. And let's talk about those first. Guys, are you ready?
I'm so excited for headlines. It's always such a train wreck.
I mean, there are so many stories that slip through the cracks when we've got these big town halls and Supreme Court justice hearings to deal with. So our first one comes to us from the New York Times. The New York Times reports that California Republican Party admits that it placed misleading ballot boxes around the state. Now, you may have heard of this. They have official ballot boxes in California, and as well as they do in several other states where you're able to drop off your mail-in ballot. The Republicans have started to insert their own ballot boxes, and when they got a cease and desist order from the Attorney General of California, which stated that by the end of the day they should remove them, they've, of course, said that they will not. Thoughts? Feelings?
I didn't know that second part. I've been kind of heads down and then watching this debate. But the Law and Order Party strikes again, I guess I'd say, right? It's pretty incredible that all of these rules apply to other people, but not to the Republicans who feel free to set up. Ballot harvesting is something that the far right of the Republican Party always accuses the Democrats of. It's not actually against the law to collect ballots for people and submit them. As long as they did it intentionally, you're not being paid for it, any of those things in almost every state. But B, if it is a problem, the fuck are you doing? Like, why do you think it's okay as long as it's the GOP? Could there possibly be any rationale for that that's not deeply offensive or racist or both? Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, what bugs me about it is that they were told to stop. I mean, sure, do a tactic, but then when the courts tell you to stop, just stop. On top of that, do the Republicans really think this is going to be the flip? I mean, California's got, 4 congressional seats that are currently held by Republicans? I just don't see this. I mean, this and the angry, mad tweeting from the president are going to turn California red. I like their strategy. I think that they're onto something. So let's get it done.
Speaking of Trump, he got an endorsement this week, a pretty big endorsement. It just got lost in the shuffle of everything that was happening. Reported by CBS News, the Taliban has endorsed Donald Trump. The Taliban on Trump. We hope he will win, and then we hope he will withdraw U.S. troops. So, of course, a very prominent endorsement for Donald Trump in this cycle. Not one of the major newspapers, but adding to a nice rounding out of the list he already has.
I love it. It's so on brand right now. It's just so perfect that the Taliban leaps into the U.S. election. I mean, who's not playing in this U.S. election? I hope Canada is doing something to fuck with this election. It'd be pretty perfect. Pretty on brand for Canada.
Well, we've seen it go the other way. We did see in our election here in 2019 that former President Barack Obama endorsed Justin Trudeau. So who knows? Who knows what will happen in this crazy time? Corey, any thoughts on this news story by CBS News?
You can't. Donald Trump has been cozy with some strange groups. I actually don't fault him or feel like it should be held against him that the Taliban endorsed him. One of the sort of not be funny in this response, but one of the tenets of peace in Afghanistan is going to have to be finding some sort of accord with the Taliban in some way, shape, or form. So, not a great group, not people I'd be inviting to Sunday dinner, but, peace is not a bad thing. And, I have a hard time caring about this one.
Okay, we'll move it on to our next one. See if you care about this one.
Hang on. Are we just going to let that sit? Are we just going to let that sit there that Corey can't really find the energy to give a shit about the Taliban? Like, Corey, dig deep, brother. Dig deep.
Coming from Steven, who didn't do the homework necessary for this episode. Thank you, Carter, for your
no evidence that I'm not prepared. I am so prepared.
For your sanctimonious commentary. Okay, let's see if Corey cares about this one, because I want to start with him on this one, get his reaction first. Again, from the New York Times, Trump reportedly wanted to rip off shirt to reveal Superman logo as he left the hospital. This is not a joke. This is a real thing that was discussed and sourced by the New York Times. Corey, go ahead.
I saw the headline. I didn't read the article because there's no way the article could live up to my imagination, which was Donald Trump sitting there with some of his best advisors saying, you know what, I'm thinking I'm going to go out there. I'm going to pretend that I'm sick. I'm going to stagger around there. I'm going to rip open this shirt and there'll be the Superman logo. And everyone in the room looking at darting eyes being like, is he joking? Is he serious? Is he joking? Is he serious? Realizing that he's serious and going, good idea, Mr. President. And then, some poor aide being forced to go down and try to find a place that has a 2XL Superman shirt that you can hide underneath, like your baggy hospital clothes. And you know what? I like to imagine that's where the plan failed. Not on common sense, but on the inability to source a Superman shirt for a man of his stature at that time.
Do you think there was an awkward run-in between the Biden aide who was trying to find the fly swatter and the Trump aide who was trying to find the 2X Superman shirt? There's this weird encounter as they ran down the street.
Yeah, they're both at this,
dollar store.
This Byway, like Byway's a Canadian thing that doesn't exist here anymore either. But they're at this, Byway, they run into each other at this dollar store, like cashier. That's a great image. I'm going to treasure that the rest of my life. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Zane. That's very good.
Carter, you were jumping in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Biden campaign can find fly swatters. The Trump campaign can't find double XL Superman costumes. It's pretty evident that he doesn't think the way that most people think. And in some levels, that's been working for him. So it must be a bit of a shock to the system that things aren't working for him now. So, poor Donald Trump not getting to live his Superman fantasy.
Commit to the bit, Donald. Get a tattoo next time.
Let's move it on to our next segment. You frackers and you packers. I want to talk about, yes, Corey gets it, because he watched the Joe Biden town hall. The dueling town halls that was the mainstream television event of this Thursday evening. But before we talk about the substance of the town halls, I want to talk a little bit about the media strategy that led to the town halls. And maybe let's start with Trump, guys. Should he have gotten as little flack as he did for dropping out of the debate, which was supposed to be tonight? So if we take some steps back, tonight was supposed to be a debate. After Trump contracted COVID, it was then scheduled to be a virtual debate. Trump said, fuck that. I don't do virtual debates. I'm going to hold a rally instead. At that same time, Biden booked a town hall with ABC, and Trump said, fuck it, I'm doing one with NBC to try to steal some airtime as well. Do you think that he deserved more flack for dropping out of that debate? And part one and part two, do you think it was a strategic mistake to not do a debate tonight?
Do I think he deserved flack? Yeah, absolutely. I believe he deserved flack. Who's going to give it to him, though? The Democrats? It was such an own goal, to answer your second question. Donald Trump not doing the debate was an enormous mistake. And I think we touched on this last time when it was still sort of floating out there as a thing that had just happened. But you're down by double digits in the polls. You need to shake this race up. You don't have the option of just sitting on a lead the way Joe Biden does. The notion that you would leave the only debate in people's minds, but well, there's one more debate scheduled, but we'll see, I guess is what I will say about that. But it'll probably happen, but who knows? And the idea that that would be the last thing people remember of you, this debate that you lost, that you embarrassed yourself at, that people are still talking about as one of the worst performances weeks later. Nothing lasts in the Trump media cycle, and that sort of lasted. And the fact that you would just, pout and go away and not do it because it's online. We're all living online all of the time. We have done, I was just looking at the numbers, we have done something like 60 podcasts in the past bit here. Haven't seen you guys in person. Like, it's all digital. It's all on screen. We're all used to it. And the idea that Donald Trump would think this is somehow just not normal to have like a video conference or somehow do a remote presence, or that was somehow ungainly. Welcome to 2020, my man. Like, what the hell is your problem? And so it was not an excuse dropping out that the American public were going to get behind. That's for damn sure. And like I said, he just didn't have the luxury. But if you're the Biden campaign, who the hell cares, right?
Yeah.
He's not. This is just a missed opportunity for him. So you're not going to give him a hard time, because what if he reverses himself? That's actually worse for you.
Carter, I want to go to you for in a second, but Corey, you spent time tonight watching Biden. With 2020 in hindsight, knowing how well, not to scoop yourself, but in your case, how well you think Biden did, do you think it was still a mistake for Trump not to debate?
I think it was a bigger mistake. I got to tell you, I finished that first debate just thinking America is in a lot of trouble. We did an instant analysis afterwards, and I think that came through pretty clear. I left that Biden debate, and I felt legitimately pumped. Not because I thought it was like just this vision of the future that was so exciting, but it was so normal, and he was such a decent guy. And any concerns I might have about his mental faculties, God, the guy was rattling off facts in pretty good depth, and he was very sharp, and he was very quick on his feet, and his answers were so well constructed. And I just thought, politics the way it's supposed to be. And then I read about the highlights of the Trump debate, and I felt bad again. It was kind of I forgot. It was a huge mistake by Trump. It was a huge mistake by Trump, because anybody who, I shouldn't say anybody, but that Biden debate was a strong performance by him. The contrast is the discussion right now. And at the end of the day, Donald Trump can't have the story be no movement, because he's behind by double digits.
Carter, same question to you. Mistake by Trump?
I think so. And I think that I'm going to do it for a little bit different reason. Because it's on two competing networks at the exact same time, people have to make a choice. So who do you choose to watch? Most of the time, you choose to watch the person that you're already agreeing with. So Biden's in the front. So most people are going to choose Biden to watch Biden. And I think that they're going to have their preconceived notions are going to be pretty well reinforced. And if you go to Trump's shit show, you're also going to have your preconceived notions reinforced, right? He's fighting with the moderator. He's rambling on the exact same lies and stories that he's told 1,000 times before through this campaign. There's nothing new there, and it's still the combative Trump that Trump supporters, I'm sure, loved, and I'm sure that tomorrow we'll see that people who watched NBC love Trump and people who watched ABC love Biden. But that works for Biden. He doesn't have to win anybody over. He's winning by 10, 11, 12 points according to the polls. He's doing fine. Trump's the one who needed to make a change, and Trump has reinforced the status quo.
Two more questions on the pre-strategy, so to speak, before we move it on to analyzing what we saw tonight. Number one, should NBC have done this tonight? The criticism they faced was offering Trump free airtime for an hour, knowing he's going to rattle off his conspiracy theories, not really answer questions. Corey, to you, should NBC have done this tonight?
Yeah, because they're a business, and there's a bit of a game theory thing going on here. Where as soon as there was the debate with ABC, and just imagine the eyeballs that they would have had, the tens of millions of people across their networks, almost uncontested, right? NBC saw an opportunity to get Donald Trump and to stake some ground and bring themselves up. I didn't watch the NBC debate, but the ABC debate had ads. There were ad breaks all through it. It was an opportunity for the network. So if you're NBC, why the hell not? Like, why wouldn't you do it as a business? This is a pretty good opportunity for you, and better you than Fox, right? Why let the next network take it? So that's where I say there's a bit of game theory in here. And I know they're taking a lot of flack for it, but to be honest, doesn't it sort of make sense? I mean, the fact that you would schedule it at the exact same time, not great for the American people, but if you're Donald Trump, why else would you do it? The only benefit to you if the Trump campaign, well, not the only, but the strongest benefit is just splitting the Biden audience, right? And you got to do that this way, and you're not necessarily going to play ball with NBC if they're not going to play ball with you.
Carter, is it a hyperbole to say that the American people lost tonight by having to choose between watching Trump or watching Biden? That this was supposed to be a debate. You know, the narrative right now is that look who loses. It's the American people being forced in our broken democracy to watch one of the two. This is not how it's supposed to be. Is that too high-minded or hyperbolic in your mind, that line of thinking?
Yeah, I think it is hyperbolic. I think it's high-minded because I think that ultimately anybody who lost would have been the people who would have been forced to watch a similar debate from the first debate. That's time I'm never getting back. This, at least there's coherent answers. Trump's arguing with the moderator, whatever, but he's at least getting his talking points out. He's not just talking over one another. And the Biden town hall, arguably was some pretty good television. I mean, I watched the highlights. I read the instant analysis. And I think that people who watched the Biden, town hall, we're fairly happy. The only people who didn't appear to be happy were the Trump surrogates who shit all over it, using kind of nonsensical arguments. They didn't have anything to cut them down with. So my view is, and in fact, I saw this recommendation on Twitter. Maybe the next debate needs to be a half an hour town hall with Biden and then a half an hour town hall with Trump. And then we'll try 30 minutes of smashing them back together again virtually. But Lord knows, the debate, the first debate, was what actually took years off people's lives.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, Americans didn't lose tonight. Americans lost first debate night. This was much better. I didn't watch the Trump debate, but I got to tell you, I've got a much better sense of Joe Biden, his policies, and what he would do with the United States of America should he become president after watching him not be interrupted by a crazy 70-year-old man tonight. This was good. This was illuminating. This actually helped me feel informed, whereas the first debate made me just feel gross.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, I think the situation here was as such that I think many people ultimately took the Stephen Carter route, where they did not tune in, where they probably are going to just consume this based on highlights or whatever camp they currently sit in. And I think the thing that surprised me in both was that there are still undecideds in the United States, considering the extremely sharp contrast that is now presented with both of these candidates. But Corey, let's go back to the specific town halls for a second. Let's start with Biden. Overall, what did you feel on a couple of metrics, both from the stagecraft and the comfort that Joe Biden had with the town hall format? We've always called him the backslapper of sorts, the guy who's really good with organic moments with people. How did he resonate on that? And then let's talk about some of the content and the main items that you felt like he really delivered on. And then I'd like to get into a few specifics that might be some risks for Biden, but I'd love to get your overall thoughts first.
Well, we don't exactly have a clean sample of what a normal presidential debate would look like because, of course, Donald Trump did not allow us to have that. But the town hall format is Joe Biden's format. He was incredibly comfortable in it. He had that space to kind of expand. He was able to talk to people and riff off of them and show connections. And he did a very good job of swinging back to the questioner and seeming genuinely interested and genuinely engaged in what they had to say. It didn't mean he didn't sometimes disagree with them on the spot. The question that he got about fracking, where he said, well, I support fracking, and, maybe put a pin in that because I don't understand. I'm from Alberta, an oil generating province in Canada, and I don't understand how fracking is such a big deal. Like don't get me wrong, we'll get there. But like the idea that Joe Biden, though, you'd like to have a beer with, if that's that old cliched test. I mean, he passed that. He seemed really interesting. He also seemed really sharp. His answers sometimes drifted towards rambly, but it was never actually rambly. Like there was always still substance to the answer, and he would often switch back and be like, I hope that answered the question. I don't know if I answered that question or not, but he always did. Like he didn't lose the thread. There were a few times I thought, where are you going with this, Joe? But he always brought it back to the question. He was not that caricature that's been sold to the American people for the past year.
You know, part of me, when I watched it, almost looked like the bar for him last time had been lowered so much in that debate. Probably by the GOP and the Trump camp, to be like, this guy does not have his cognitive faculties, etc. And now he walks into something that is totally his bailiwick. It's connecting with real people, talking to them one-on-one. It seems like he took advantage of the fact that that bar had perhaps been lowered so much so that he could kind of relax and just be himself and kind of just walk into this with comfort. Carter, what did you take? You watched some of the highlights. I also want to get it from your lens, because Corey watched the full thing, but from the highlights and the instant analysis, what you saw, what did you kind of make of it?
Well, what I was really focused on was the process of it. Like, I mentioned earlier who's going to be watching these particular town halls and how are they broken up in terms of their audience function. It's one thing when you have a debate and 60 million Americans tune in to watch the same exact outcome. This is now maybe a smaller audience, maybe they're somewhere, let's say 40, 45 million, maybe even smaller. I know that the first debate for us was destination viewing. I set aside the time. We were going to watch it. It was destination. This never reached, the kind of online frenzy of destination viewing. We're all going to sit down together collectively as a nation and watch this town hall because it was broken into two subsets. So I do think that the self-selection, the lack of enthusiasm, those were the things that I was watching. Then I'm watching the outcome of the spin, right? The spin cycle and the desperation of the Trump surrogates. The immediate attacking of, the NBC, moderator. I'm sure that the NBC, moderator was an agreed upon moderator, and they kicked the shit out of her online. Called her a Biden surrogate, said congratulations on your new job with the Biden campaign. They were just ripping her down right from the beginning because it's all they know. They have to have someone that is the enemy, and that became their immediate spin out of I think. From what I could tell, actually a fairly good performance for Trump. The highlights I was watching, it's not for my taste. I still think he's a lying ass, but the people who were attracted to him heard his greatest hits. And so those greatest hits were all right there, and he said them effectively. He got to flirt with a woman who thought he had a nice smile. He has that going for him. He's happy. But they immediately go into the world is against us mode. And, I thought that was fascinating. And that's what I'm going to be watching tomorrow is, how does Trump world respond and how is Biden world responding? I'm not expecting to see any significant shifting in the polling, for the next week as a result of this event. I'm
going to go into the Trump, town hall in a second here, but let's round out the Biden side with some of your strategic thoughts. Anything either of you guys would have told Biden to do differently tonight? It seems like you guys were relatively positive on both his message, his tone, cadence, content. He had to hold, I think, was it 2 hours, Corey, that he held this thing, about 90 minutes to 2 hours, with TV breaks in between. So it wasn't an insignificant amount of time. But any Monday morning or what I'd call Thursday evening quarterbacking that you'd want to add to the Biden performance from your strategic lens?
Well, there were certain policy areas where he was a bit weaker. I was surprised by how stumbly he seemed on questions of race relations. At least the first kick he got, which was from a young progressive Democrat, a black progressive Democrat. And the other one was court packing. I don't know. I mean, he continues to not have a great answer on that. And he was pinned down a bit and said, well, I'll give you an answer before the election, before people vote. Well, people are voting right now. So it didn't seem like that is his point. His point is people are voting right now, so you can't put somebody in. And then he said, but I'll give you an answer before people are voting. So if you think about that one for more than 5 seconds, that's pretty awkward from a policy point of view. The other one where I thought his answers, and I've thought his answers and his commentary has been pretty weak on this ever since the convention, is on his green strategy, on, he talks about these things in a way that makes me think he actually doesn't know very much about them, particularly relative to some of his other commentary where he can get very deep and very specific. And I am mystified by I admit, I understand Pennsylvania is a swing state. I understand that fracking is vitally important behind America's energy resurgence. And as such, it's become a bit of a flashpoint between people who believe that we, or Americans should continue to drill and grow their fossil fuel industries, and those who think this is doubling down on chaos and in a way that is potentially harming the environment. But I'm still struck by the fact that this is a flashpoint issue, and that Joe Biden doesn't feel comfortable saying things like, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like fracking very much." His answers of just sort of capitulation on that front were mystifying to me, given his base. So, that's a limitation, I suppose, of my knowledge of America. But those were the areas that I thought he probably could have done a bit better on. And I guess as I talk this out, it comes to substance, not really style. I thought his style was spot on, really good. And an amazing contrast to Donald Trump. He seemed sharp. He seemed friendly. He seemed decent. And decent is, I think, what Americans are looking for right now.
Carter, give me style or substance, commentary or strategy for Biden. What would you, in hindsight, have suggested on either of those fronts?
I'm struck by how good he looked. He hasn't looked good at a lot of these things. And, I don't know if it was a new makeup artist that really packed the face on for him, that took a few years off. But this is the best I think I've seen Joe Biden look. And Corey, to your point about the answers that he stumbled on, I've been wondering about this kind of internal conflict that Joe Biden might be having on some of the issues that he hasn't internalized, where he has taken policies either and rejected them, such as the Green New Deal, where he's now against the Green New Deal. He's got his own kind of framing for the Green New Deal. Some of these things and maybe he's not as comfortable with the race answer that's been written for him, so he hasn't been able to internalize it. I think that Joe Biden, and this may just paint me just weird, but I think Joe Biden has to say what he believes. I don't think that Joe Biden has the capacity to walk the line on a scripted answer that just kind of is on the razor's edge of falling off of it into one side of the pit of problems, right? So the pit of problems for the environment is that you lose Alexandra AOC, I can't ever get to her last name. You lose her, and you lose some of the Green support that the Democrats rely on. And then you're in real trouble. So he has to learn this answer that's been cleverly scripted for him by pointy heads like Corey and I, but he never internalizes it. So what do you think of that, Corey? Like, is that
I think that's spot on. And it was in my notes here to mention that his answers were generally weaker when he was dealing with progressive touchstones. Mm-hmm. He was fantastic when he was dealing with questions from Republicans, many of which were rooted in kind of Trump world mythology. But, whether they were throwing at him questions about, foreign policy or, the questions that they gave about policing, he just was really, really good at it. He had those answers down pat. He had Trump dead to rights, and he did it in a way that he didn't look like he was just spinning off lines. It was partly the format, which allowed him to expand and talk about these things, and of course get the framing from somebody who's not a professional politician. But it was also just partly the content he clearly is so much more comfortable with. And so I think there's an awful lot to that, Carter. Like the Ocasio-Cortezes of the world. Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Very well done. I'm so proud of you.
They probably scare him a bit because he's worried about his leftward flank and if he's just going to get himself into too much trouble. So when he's talking about issues that progressive Democrats are more passionate about, I suspect his instincts are more centrist, and he's not actually even that comfortable with where he's going on some of it. Fracking might be the exception the other way, but you're right. He's walking a line, and he doesn't quite know how to walk it. Definitely more comfortable on offense than defense, though, and definitely more comfortable on centrist issues, by and large, than progressive issues.
Let's move to Trump for a second, and I will caveat that I do want to, before we close out this segment, go through some of the risks for each of the candidates and whether they're big risks or small risks. So thank you for teeing up some of these topics. I'll come back to them in a second. Let's talk about Trump. Carter, let's start with you. You are part of Donald Trump's team. He says he's not doing the virtual debate. He said he was going to do a rally instead. They then decide to go to NBC. What do you tell him, sir? What is your goal for the next 60 minutes on national television? What would have this strategic impulse, if you were guiding that campaign, have been, Carter? And did he deliver on what you felt like the optimal strategic impulse was tonight?
Well, I think that the challenge that he is faced right now, and he tweets about it and he talks about it in his speeches, is trying to get himself to appeal to women. So I probably would have said to him, sir, you know, what we're going to try and do is really focus on your female messages that work the best. So let us try a few things. And the first thing we're going to try and do is not walk all over the female moderator. We're going to try not to create this sense that you're just you're just a male asshole, because that's not playing well and it's stopping your message from being heard. So, you've got talking points that haven't changed since 2016 that the voters who voted for you in 2016 still like. So let's focus on those talking points. We're just going to change a couple of behaviors. And number one is you're going to listen to the question. And you can see him struggling and actually trying to listen, to the questions, from Savannah Guthrie. But then he just can't help himself. He gets into the argument. He thinks that she's trying to play gotcha on white supremacy, trying to play gotcha on QAnon. So he starts fighting with her. And so my advice to him simply would have been, don't fight with the moderator. She's the stand-in for all women that need to vote for you in this election.
Corey, what would your strategic impulse have been to guide Donald Trump into tonight?
Well, I only read the analysis. I don't even think I got as deep into it as Stephen did there. But he did need to create fireworks, and he did need to create a sense of excitement and energy. And if you are his advisors, you're challenged with trying to unleash the Donald Trump, the dynamo, the public speaker who is charismatic in his own frightening way, and this repellent man who is scaring away moderate voters. So obviously you don't want him fighting with the audience. So I think that him fighting with the moderator was quite intentional, and it was foreshadowed throughout the day. Oh, we're going to be set up. Oh, it's going to be a bad thing here. I think he wanted to be a bit of a martyr tonight. I think he wanted a bit of a fight with the quote unquote fake news media tonight. And I think he did because he wanted the attention to be on him the next day, because he is, he relishes the muck. And if he doesn't have the muck, he creates the muck. And so I hate to say it, but given where he is and given what's worked for him in the past, that might not even be a bad, it's a bad strategy in the sense that people should not act this way. It might not be an ineffective strategy.
Yeah, and it seems like there's, from all of his answers, everything from his debt to his last negative COVID test to denouncing white supremacy to denouncing QAnon to talking about the Supreme Court justice pick. It's not like he had upside on any of them. It was like, how big is the wound? How big is the risk? So maybe I'm going to talk about it through that prism. And Corey, go ahead. Well,
before you do, it kind of works, right? Like, I'm on the front page of the New York Times right now. I just pulled it up. The front headline is not Joe Biden. I mean, Biden's in there too, but it's about Trump's combative town hall.
Yeah, But the New York Times. Did you listen to the Daily today? You could put my hand into a paper shredder. They went through all of Trump's promises that he's kept from 2016. I couldn't. And then they got to the ones that he broke after they went through 15 minutes of talking about how great Donald Trump is. They're both siding again, to the total detriment of the voter. They're going to give Trump every opportunity, as they did in 2016. The media created Donald Trump, and the media continue to sustain him. It's crazy making.
Well, Carter, let me try this. Let me go through a list of items for each of the candidates from tonight, and you answer one of three things: big risk, small risk, or upside. Okay? Is it a big risk, big exposure? Small risks, it's a risk, but not a big deal. Mm-hmm. Or is this upside? And let's start with the first one: Trump not denouncing QAnon. saying he doesn't know what they are, saying that, he's heard that they're great at stopping pedophiles and he's not a big fan of pedophiles, but not denouncing the fact that the satanic cult that is opposed to the Democrat has Donald Trump as their singular savior. Big risk, small risk, or upside?
Big risk. As big as Facebook has allowed QAnon to become, it's still a relatively small cult of people who believe these Q statements. And so by not simply denouncing them and in fact, talking about how great they are, regarding pedophilia, it's just, he doesn't have the capacity to see that doesn't win him any votes outside of that small group. Whereas if he just simply said, I'm not a fan of QAnon, I don't believe that it reflects reality. For him to say, I don't actually know what it is, but I do understand that they're against pedophilia. I mean, what the fuck is that? You either know or you don't know. So this was a big risk, and the risk itself is that this is what we're talking about 2 days from now. Of course, we won't be because it's Trump, and we'll have 13 more things to talk about by the end of the weekend.
Corey, same question to you on QAnon. Big risk, small risk, upside?
Well, QAnon, the answer there was defensive, not offensive. He didn't think he was going to win votes on QAnon. He is, as I've mentioned before, a bit of a coward. He doesn't want to lose the votes that he has. And so he wasn't willing to take a strong stance against people that he knows to be supporters, that he knows that if he has any chance of victory, he needs to keep somewhat on side. I mean, it's all crazy. If only because where else are they going to go? And it's QAnon. For Christ's sake, they'll just spin it as Donald Trump was blinking in a way that showed that he was actually still supportive of us. There was a coded message. I ran it through this cipher that I found in a original Gutenberg Bible in the National Archives, and this is what it came out and said. I mean, it's fucking QAnon. It's crazy shit. But he's a coward, and he didn't want to denounce them, and that's what it comes down to. So we shouldn't be surprised. He didn't denounce the Proud Boys in the same sense. He only does these things when sensible people around him get to a point of such panic, I'm sure, that he's like, fine, I'll do it. But even his denunciation of white supremacy, even this time in the town hall, saying he would support a peaceful transition. Hey, fucking progress, right? Immediately followed up with all of these hedge words. So, I mean, Donald Trump is a coward, and he's a coward who plays himself off as a bully and a tough guy. But fundamentally, he's just scared of saying something that will turn people who are on his side against him. Because then he'll lose the presidency and he'll go to jail as he deserves.
Quickly on this one, Corey, for Trump, last negative COVID test does not tell us when that was, does not tell us whether he got tested at the last debate. What is that, big risk? Is that a small risk? Is there any upside in that?
I mean, I don't think it's a big risk because it's not new. At this point, we know he's just dodging on his recent COVID test. And he got COVID, and the other people around him didn't get COVID. So it doesn't feel like it's a consequential question, I suppose I would say, Zain, in a fashion. I mean, it obviously speaks to his character, but it doesn't tell us anything about his character we didn't know. The notion that he's like, yeah, maybe it was that day, maybe it was the day before, who knows, who could say? That's crazy. And obviously he knows, and obviously we know what the answer is just by the fact that he won't tell us what the answer is. But I don't think that there's any kind of vote moving magic in that particular answer.
Carter, anything to add to that?
No, but I think that Corey's right. I mean, ultimately, if he continues to behave the way he has behaved, there's no votes being moved. And if there's no votes being moved, then he's going to lose. And that's just the end game on this. So everything that he doesn't do to move the actual votes is, in fact, a big risk.
Let's move it on to Biden for a second, because I want to talk about a couple of things that Corey already alluded to regarding Biden. This answer or non-answer that he's had on packing the courts for the last 10 days now, and now saying he's going to tell us before the election, presumably after Coney Barrett gets sworn in, but before the election. I suspect that's what he meant. But Corey, on that front, big risk, small risk, or upside with the way he's been handling that?
So his answer was interesting, and it was illuminating, even if it wasn't a true answer. It didn't tell us what he's going to do. As he was being pressed on this particular topic by Stephanopoulos, what he said was, yeah, I'm not a fan of court packing, but I don't want to talk about it because we should right now be talking about this very illegitimate move by Donald Trump to try to put in a justice. And, he talked a bit about the Constitution, and he said some people debate whether he should really be doing this now that voting has started. I don't think people really debate it. The president still has the authority to do it, whether we like it or not. But, he really went back a couple of times to this well of, I don't want to talk about it because we should be talking about how bad this current action is, not how I'm going to deal with this bad action. This is what Donald Trump does. He keeps us spinning. He keeps the conversation moving. We've got to keep the conversation stuck right here. And so when pressed on it, he said, well, what about, so you've said in the past you're not a fan of court packing. He's like, well, I'm not a fan of court packing. I'm paraphrasing, and I'm sure people can go back and get exactly what the message was. I'm not going to try to do it word for word, but what he did say is he wanted to see how this all played out, whether there was, for example, true debate on the floor of the Senate, whether they were going to have an actual nomination or if it was a sham nomination that didn't actually answer any questions you would expect to have answers about a Supreme Court justice before he decided what his response would be there. And he kind of hinted he had a number of different options on that front. He said, I think 4 or 5 different options to, limit tenure in court or things of that ilk. So it will be really interesting to see what comes out of that, and if it forces the Republicans to act a little bit more slowly, just out of prudence, and it suggests to me a strategy where Biden wants to have the conversation long enough that people say, okay, we can't do this. I don't know how realistic that is. But to be clear, it's not like he said, I have the answer right now and I'll tell you later. It was, let's see how this plays out, and I'll give you my answer based on how this plays out.
Carter,
as far as
what do
the
you think?
risk goes...
Oh, sorry, Corey.
No, let Carter tell me how the risk goes.
Oh, yeah, this is good. It's like teamwork. He's going to take it in an entirely new direction. Tell us, Carter.
I think that the risk is fairly significant because it's accepting the premise of the question. The premise of this particular question is that he's going to be stacking the courts or packing the courts in some fashion. We can agree or disagree on whether or not this is right or wrong. It was the Republicans who said that they weren't going to appoint a Supreme Court justice in the final year of a mandate. That's what they said. Then they revised what they said. And it's like the media runs to the Democrats and says, essentially, the Republicans aren't playing fair. How unfair are you going to be when you respond? And Joe Biden should simply be saying, you're missing the point. This isn't about my response. This is about what they're doing now. And I'm not even going to entertain your questions until such time as we know how this is going to play. I still have faith that there may be 4 honorable senators who stand up and say that the people deserve a voice in the selection of this next Supreme Court justice. Until that happens, don't even come and ask me the question. Don't even come and ask me the question.
Corey, is that what you were going to say?
Aggression. No, except for the aggression at the end, that is effectively what Joe Biden said tonight. Right?
No, it isn't what he said. It's what he
didn't
wanted.
Watch the fucking
I watched this.
Oh my God. Yeah, tell me more about the town hall you didn't watch, Steve.
I watched the highlights, you bastards.
Good.
That's a highlight.
No,
Carter,
look, I thought I've already said I thought it was one of his weaker answers because he doesn't have an answer for it. As far as additive risk, I would say it's moderate. It's not nothing because he said something new today. He said something that he was going to give an answer after. It will be misconstrued as I'm hiding the answer from you. That's not what he said. He said he wanted to see how this plays out, but it's not maximal risk because he does have a story there, which is I want to keep focused on these things.
Carter, let's talk about one more thing for Biden, which Corey's alluded to before, which is these lukewarm answers on progressive issues. Whether that be the Green New Deal saying you support the framework, but you don't support the policy, around racial justice saying, well, you seem to say the right things, but your history and your verbiage doesn't really flow. Is that a big risk? Is that a small risk? Or is there upside with perhaps the more moderate voters, so to speak, that may not be where the left flank of his party is? How do you kind of reconcile what you're seeing thus far from Joe Biden on these progressive issues in terms of that risk categorization?
Can I answer it 2 ways? I think that Joe Biden's team sees this as upside. And that's why they're scripting the answers that they're scripting on these difficult issues. I think Joe Biden's team thinks that if he hits these answers just so, he's got tremendous upside to win both the Green New Deal voter and the moderate voter that wants to see economic expansion, return to the United States under Joe Biden. So they're looking at it and they're saying, hit this tiny little strip and we're going to be fine. There's a tremendous amount of upside. I see it a little differently. I see it as a risk because Joe Biden, when Joe Biden's Joe Biden, he's authentic, he's good, he's a communicator, and he gives us what we need. When Joe Biden is a politician, Joe Biden's not very good. Joe Biden's not a particularly good politician, and we've seen this in the past. We used to call them gaffes. They were gaffes before Donald Trump blew up the idea of gaffes. There are no more gaffes anymore because Donald Trump has committed them all. But Biden, when he's Biden right now, I would let Biden be Biden, to steal and paraphrase that quote from The West Wing that I
hate you guys so much.
But you're agreeing with me that when Biden is Biden, he's stronger, right? When he's doing what he believes in. So don't just let the West Wing reference get you angry. You're agreeing with the general premise that Biden is stronger. That Biden is stronger when he knows what he's talking about and he's comfortable in his answer, and he's weaker when he's being a politician. Agree with me now. Thank you.
Corey, I'll give you your shot at that same question. Big risk, small risk, or upside for Biden's answers on what we'd categorize as a progressive bucket of issues?
Look, at best, he doesn't seem in command of the issues, and at worst, he seems downright disingenuous. Frankly, he just doesn't sound forthright when he's talking about them. He doesn't seem in command, as I said. So I don't like his answers there, and I do agree with Stephen Carter that they do seem to be coming from a scripting that he's not necessarily comfortable with. I think most of his answers have a certain level of scripting. This is what you want to say, and this is the best way for you to say it. But anybody who's worked with a candidate or any kind of leader where you're feeding them words knows they can agree to your words in the moment, and they butcher them when they're not comfortable with them. Like, it is such a tell that they don't actually want to say the things that you want to put in their mouth when they start just stumbling through them in such an awkward, bloody fashion as we saw tonight on those answers. So that's a problem. And it's actually a problem for Biden's campaign advisors as much as it is for Joe Biden, because your boss doesn't actually like your work, guys and gals. You got to get together and you got to find better answers for him, because he's not comfortable with those answers. He's got a mental hang up to them, and he's using the different words and he's creating those different pauses because he doesn't like your answers. Now, I could have just agreed with Stephen Carter outright, but then he had the audacity to use an Aaron fucking Sorkin quote, the lowest form of political discourse in this podcast of all podcasts. I am embarrassed. I apologize to the listeners. It will not happen again. Mr. Carter's salary will be docked. You will not hear such tripe again from this podcast.
The American president is greater than Dave. It's better than Dave.
Get out of here.
Fight me. Fight me.
Carter, let's start with you on this final question. I could go down the whole, hey, how great is the televised special going to be of the reunion? But I'm not even going to do that, because we've got a clock, and I
thought you guys were professionals. I can't believe your love of Sorkin. Sorkin is trash, just trash. Ruined a generation of political organizers.
Oh my God.
I think I was going to say he ruined Facebook, but I think Facebook did that to themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's hold on. Let's end it with this. Carter, give me your one-line summary of what you make of today. What is the outcome for tonight's dueling town halls going to mean, I should say, on the broader 3-week countdown to Election Day? Anything, nothing? Does it put pressure on to next week's actual debate, should it happen? What is your summation of what tonight kind of produced in terms of trajectory and perhaps even in terms of influencing outcome?
One, it's a complete miss for Trump to have an opportunity to actually start to rebuild his voting coalition that could elect him. Two, by the time we get to the debate in another week, we could be seeing upwards of 25% of the votes cast. So now you've already got 25% of the votes locked in, and it's going to be super hard for Trump to make everything up if he's losing by 10%. In the first 25, like it's impossible. Like the numbers become so much harder for him to bake in. So each week is a missed opportunity for Trump to do something significant. And without now that I think external focused injection of craziness that we saw in 2016, I just can't see Donald Trump himself pulling this together and coming up with some sort of a brand new strategy.
Longest one sentence I've ever heard, Corey.
There was no punctuation in there at all.
Yeah,
no punctuation.
Yeah, it's like a Sorkin script.
Yeah.
Corey, give us your one sentence. Carter's about to start walking and talking by himself. Corey, give us your one sentence on the ramifications of what tonight meant.
It meant about as much as war is good for, and by that I mean absolutely nothing. This isn't going to matter at all. The good news, though, if you're Joe Biden, is you're ahead by a lot. So every day that the race does not change is a good day for you, and every day that the race doesn't change is a bad day for Donald Trump.
We'll leave that there, and let's move it on to our next segment. You can't even bear it. I want to talk about the Yes, I'm doing it, Carter. I see your facial expression. I want to talk about the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, and more specifically, I want to double click on the Democratic strategy. There's a lot going on here, but this is now sitting with the Judiciary Committee, and they're questioning. They've asked Amy Coney Barrett all their questions, everything from what's your stance on X, Y, and Z? How would you deal with hypothetical scenario A, B, and C? But the zoom in that I want to talk about is the Democratic strategy. And Carter, let me start with you with a very simple question. The Dems, and especially Biden, have been saying that this is an illegitimate process. We're already voting. 18 million people to this point have cast their ballots. We need the people to decide. Should the Democrats on the judiciary even be doing the formal rigmarole, asking her these questions, treating her with pleasantries, trying to get you to the gotcha sort of things that they did with Kavanaugh and others when you're in the midst of a confirmation? Or should they have taken an entirely different approach with how they addressed this confirmation?
I do not understand why they've made it legitimate, why they're focusing on her. I mean, they're focusing on her as though she's going to be confirmed through something vaguely resembling a normal process. I remind you that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she was confirmed, was over 90 senators. I can't remember if it was 94 or 95, but over 90 senators approved her nomination. This is going to go down, and it's going to be, 51-49, 52-48, something along those lines. It's going to break almost entirely on party lines. There is no real confirmation process that's being followed, as there wasn't with Kavanaugh. So what are we pretending at? At least Kavanaugh, there was an actual, interrogation in the world, and the country was focused on it. The country is focused right now on the election, on the pandemic, on the economic recovery. There's no legitimacy that would make sense that's actually going to result in this particular seat being confirmed in a normal fashion. So don't do it. You could ask her questions about the confirmation process, about how she feels about being used as a pawn, like those types of things I could see. But to take her down the road of explaining her position on Roe v. Wade, when she's already written her position on Roe v. Wade, she's already written her position on the Affordable Care Act. She's told the United States who she is, and now she's pretending not to be that person.
Corey, do you agree? Do you feel like the Democrats should have either abstained entirely, try to protest outside of the Judiciary Committee, or should they have followed the standard approach as they have with questioning her as if she was a normal, peacetime confirmation hearing candidate?
I just don't know how much they want to make the election about this, because as I've mentioned, Donald Trump is less popular than Amy Coney Barrett, right, and her appointment. So if you make it a referendum on the Supreme Court, you are potentially putting Donald Trump back into office. And for that reason, I think something very dramatic, like just, in my mind, I think like, you could boycott it. You could just not show up. You could say we're not playing ball. But that raises the conversation too much. I do think you have to show up. But I do think every single question should be about the legitimacy of the process and how you're not at all comfortable with the legitimacy of the process, and not play the game of, in fact, I would do the opposite. I would say, Miss Barrett, you have been put forward by this president in the last term, and I am sure you would love today to talk about your legal qualifications. We're not prepared to do that. The median amount of time that a Supreme Court justice has had to come before this committee between recommendation and nomination is 71 days, 2.5 months. Nobody gets appointed as fast as you, and certainly nobody does in the last year of an election. Actually, as an aside here, guys, there's an exception to that. John Jay was appointed in the last year and confirmed in 1 day. But there is a fundamental point that Supreme Court justices lately are not there. So, you have to show up. You have to let the news do their thing, but you just have to constantly remind through that cycle what exactly is going on here. I think to Joe Biden's point, we can't pretend this is normal. This is like inviting a couple to Thanksgiving dinner, are actually separated, and they pretend to be a couple. It's just the faux normalcy is quite off-putting. I don't understand why the Democrats are playing the games even to the degree they are. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that they're not talking about the process, but to talk about anything but the process, I think, is a bit of a mistake. There was an opportunity here to take a different course for them and set Joe Biden up to make a decision that would not necessarily be as popular down the road. So that's the other thing. This is not just a standalone, discrete piece. But if at the end of all of this, Joe Biden says, okay, I'm going to pack the court. Well, you want to make sure that everybody's heard your arguments about the illegitimacy as loud and as clear as possible for the previous month. If Joe Biden says after an incredibly short nomination, okay, we've decided that after much discussion, I didn't want to do this, but it's clearly an illegitimate nomination here. We are going to neutralize this nomination by appointing 2 Democrats, or 1 Democrat plus, I don't know, whatever you want to do there, but you effectively say, I think 1 for 1's the cleanest. We're going to neutralize Coney Barrett with 1, and then we're going to have an appointment of somebody who is palatable to both sides. That's the Joe Biden compromise, right? Mm-hmm. That's maybe what you do. But they didn't even try that. And as they say in the movie Dave, you don't really know how much you can do until you stand up and decide to try.
That's poetic. That's beautiful. Carter, okay, so the Dems have already chosen a course here, right? They're going to treat this pseudo-legitimately. They're going to use the confines outside of the judiciary to talk about the illegitimacy of the process. They've already chosen this track. Help me script and strategize the ultimate confirmation approval. She gets confirmed. Let's just say that's the most probable scenario. What are you doing if you're the Dems? Are you, to Corey's point, not putting as much of a spotlight on it because of her outpacing Trump in popularity? Are you starting to cede more of the ground? Help me script and strategize. Now that they've selected a course, what the next act of this scripted theater looks like for the Democrats, and how they best come out of it, knowing that the probable scenario is a confirmation for Amy Coney Barrett.
I would probably just put more money into the Senate campaigns. Lindsey Graham's at risk. That's fantastic. I wouldn't even talk about the court position. I think the court position actually makes Lindsey Graham's re-election stronger. The only good thing that can possibly come out of this is that you have the Senate, and it's not a sure thing that the Democrats are going to have the Senate after November the 3rd. Yeah. There's a lot of moving pieces. Polls are, it's not just simple as Trump's unpopular, ergo all the Republican senators are going to lose. A lot of those Republican senators have significant operations on their own that they can mobilize and they can get their vote out. I would be working very, very hard just to make sure that the result of Amy Coney Barrett is a Senate for the Democrats. Corey's idea of the Biden solution of 2 new justices, that's interesting. I like, I think that could happen. But that doesn't happen at all if they don't win the Senate. So for me, I would just really try not to let this Supreme Court justice that is an appointed position take your eye off of the actual game of winning elections. I'm like fixated on the 538 Senate model and the probabilities of victories. I mean, they're coin tosses. There's coin tosses, and 60% probabilities and 70%. I mean, nothing is certain on the Senate. So I would be doubling down on the efforts to just remind American voters, especially in the key states, that you need to have all three branches or all three elements of of Congress and the presidency. You lost the courts. It's over.
Corey, what's your strategy here? Do you agree with Carter that it's a refocus and a brighter spotlight on the Senate races, using this as a bridge towards, using the justice confirmation as a bridge toward that? Are you doing something different? Are you advising something similar? What is your take?
I think this is a lost fight, and I've said this since the start. The Democrats are not going to win this. I don't think that it motivates their base more than it motivates the Republicans. They are not doing what I want them to do, which is just talk about the process. But I can imagine it's very hard when you're sitting there not to ask the questions that you think may actually bring out an answer that could move public opinion against Amy Coney Barrett. But I guess what I would say is don't get distracted by this. The conversation about how this could be leveraged up into the Senate campaigns, all of that, to me is dangerously missing the point, because it's not something that's going to drive a lot of undecided votes. It's not something that riles up your side more than the other side, at least when adjusted for popularity of the president already. It's more popular than Donald Trump. I don't know if you want to talk about anything more popular than Donald Trump. Just don't get distracted.
We're going to leave that segment there and move it on to our final segment, our overrated and underrated. Guys, are you ready?
Totally.
Carter, I'm going to start with you first because you were the first to respond. Since June, the DNC and the Biden campaign have raised over $1 billion, a staggering amount, $1 billion coming in. But the question I have to ask you, Carter, late money in a campaign, overrated or underrated?
Underrated. Late money is from the heavens, man. Early money, you can do a lot of things, and early money makes campaigns run. It makes campaigns successful. But late money, man, that's everything. I remember getting late money. There's a limit. You can't get, late money on November the 2nd does you no good. But the money, the $1 billion that have come into this point, this is money that gets to be spent, and decisions that get to be made that force Lindsey Graham to, at every opportunity, every time he's addressing the media, beg for donations as low as $10 because every little bit helps, which makes me so happy. Underrated.
Corey, same question to you. Late money into a campaign, overrated or underrated?
Overrated. There's a diminishing return for each dollar beyond a certain amount of dollars in a campaign. The conversation becomes saturated. Your conversation is not going to adjust much beyond a certain point. I take Carter's point that you can then move money into these down ticket races and you can make things uncomfortable in states for the Republicans that they weren't expecting to feel discomfort. But at the end of the day, I think it would be awesome, but I think it's unlikely they're going to flip South Carolina. That seems almost just too cool. Like, it's just not going to happen. And, you start spending money on stupid things like that when you have too much money. And he has too much money.
Oh, my God.
Joe Biden does not need any more money in this campaign.
Corey
this campaign
so
is a wash in cash.
How wrong can Corey be? Could be the name of this podcast today.
Corey, I'm going to stick with you on this particular one. Ben Sass, Nebraska Senator, Republican, has come out against Trump today. Lindsey Graham, during the Judiciary Committee confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett, made a offhand comment that, if the polls are right, it seems like your party, alluding to the Democrats, are going to win big. There starts to seem to be a little bit of fracturing with some of Trump's top brass starting to admit some defeat, starting to perhaps go against their president. So the question is, Senate Republicans going up against Trump or acknowledging that he might lose, overrated or underrated?
It's tempting to talk about rats deserting a sinking ship. It really is. I think it's actually I'm not going to take such a cynical approach. The reality is they want to have a life after that. They will still be senators in all likelihood afterwards. Well, in most of those cases you've just described. And And there's got to be a day after, and I think people are naturally starting to think about what happens after November 3rd. It doesn't make any sense to go down with the ship. People talk about rats deserting a sinking ship. How fucking stupid would you be as a rat to go down with the ship? And so they're rightly starting to make a bit of distance and set some pieces in place where they can have a productive Senate career after Donald Trump hopefully loses.
Carter, same question to you. These Republican senators deserting their once beholden president, overrated or underrated?
I think it's underrated. I think that, first of all, one of the things I've been very worried about is that the Republican Party has not shown a tremendous desire to stand against Trump when he's breaking the norms. So standing a little bit against him now reinforces to me that the most important norm, the norm of a peaceful transition after an election loss, may be forced to be observed, and a few more senators predicting a Republican loss and a peaceful transfer of power would make me sleep better at night.
Carter, I'm sticking to you for this last one to start us off with. This week, Facebook and Twitter, both of them, came out and said that they will start taking down Holocaust denial posts. In Facebook's case, it's a reversal in course for what they said before. So the simple question is, these platforms starting to act a little bit more like publishers these days, maybe seeing some of the polling and seeing how it might affect Donald Trump and he might be going down. But I'm just adding that extra editorial context. But the question is, platforms starting to act as publishers, even just a little bit, overrated or underrated?
Probably overrated. They see that they're about to get their fucking asses handed to them, and it's about time. So start behaving like responsible adults, Mark. Come on, Mark, Jack, get in the same room and start talking about how there has to be a common sense regulation of speech that it allows Americans the full opportunity of freedom of speech without the absolute chaos of unmitigated lies.
Corey, same question to you to finish us off. These platforms starting to slowly, I shouldn't say but surely, but slowly start acting a bit like publishers. Is that overrated or underrated in your mind?
Well, I think it's overrated in the longer term because Stephen's right. Ultimately, legislation is going to force them to do this and a whole lot more. But it's underrated in the short term, and I mean really short term over the next few weeks. These social media platforms are pretty clearly signaling that they are not going to put up with any bullshit post-election if Donald Trump starts to, and Donald Trump's brigade of rather unscrupulous, more extreme supporters start throwing disinformation around Facebook, around Twitter, around all of these social media platforms. So I think it's a very good thing. I think it's a very important thing. And if we do find ourselves in a close election and we do find that a sitting president starts attacking those most serious of democratic norms, as Stephen put it, we are going to be very relieved that social media has finally decided to get off their fucking asses.
We're going to leave it there. That is You the People for this week.
Zane.
Yes.
Zane, important news. Today is Angela Lansbury's 95th birthday, and I just want to shout out to Angela.
Fuck you, man. Wait. She's actually 95?
Yes, she is.
She doesn't look 95. I just Googled it. Should we say goodbye?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
Okay. Carter, any birthday wishes you want to shout out before I go? Sorry, I should ask. I in typical Canadian fashion, I didn't ask if there was any shout outs.
Oh, but I want to shout out to Sterling K. Brown, who stepped admirably into the role of Leo McGarry tonight on the West Wing special.
Wait, is that who play?
Yeah. So there you go. So that is that's my shout out. Now get us out of here, Zane. Get us out of here.
You can't just drop this bomb about racial casting situation that I can't address now. Okay, we'll leave it there. That's You the People for this week. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next week.